All right. What's happening, everybody? It's me, Robert Phoenix, and we are back for another edition of the Astro Weather. Let me just check my audio. My audio. My audio. That should be a lot better. There we go. Well, greetings, one and all. We're back. We're back on the case. I have one last sip of coffee from my gal, Orlando. There we go. All right. Peachy, you want to say hi to the people? Peachy's in a very social mood today, isn't she? Yes, she is. Yes, she is. Little peaches. Little peaches. Here we go. How is everyone? Wherever you are in the world, this morning, this evening, this afternoon, wherever you may be. Let's see, Peachy. Oh, you got some gunk in your face. First off, I just wanted to give a thank you to our guy Siegert for buying me some coffee the other day. And that is something that you can do if you feel so moved. The link for the coffee is down below in the show notes. So again, I've been demonetized on YouTube since the 2010s. And on the one hand, I feel like it gives me a somewhat celebrated status. On the other hand, it does deny me a certain revenue stream that would come through YouTube, but that's okay. Yesterday on Twitter, I announced that I'm going to begin moving the operation over to Rumble full time. So it's going to be gradual, starting on Friday. We're gonna do all the Friday forecasts over on Rumble. So that's the first thing that will move to Rumble. It'll be the Friday forecast. We've been doing them with Russ there anyway, so it's just going to be a continuation of that. This Friday, we're going to have Misaki back on the show. How about that? And he has some very interesting advice for all of you who are interested in cryptocurrency. So you may want to listen. You may want to watch. That's going to be on Rumble. So we're going to start this on Rumble with the Friday forecast. Then I think we're probably going to do some. I've been trying to simul stream with YouTube and Rumble. I haven't quite. I mean, I have the software and I can kind of figure it out. It's going to take me some time, but we're going to start to simul stream. Basically, get people acquainted with the Rumble side of things, and that's going to include the Astro Weather. Of course, 15 minutes of flame already happens on Rumble. So that's already happening. And then Sunday Night Astro Live will eventually migrate over to Rumble. Now, the challenge that I have with Rumble is that I have two channels. One is a Robert Phoenix channel. The other is a 15 Minutes of Flame channel. And I know this sounds very confusing, but when I make this shift, it's all going to be on the Robert Phoenix channel, which is already pre-existing. So the 15 Minutes of Flame channel will probably atrophy. So I have another Rumble channel. I've got two Rumble channels. And so after the first of the year, the move to Rumble will be complete. And I'm just going to have to figure out what to do with all these YouTube archives and all these shows. And because I don't want to lose them. It's just the internet could go off in the blink of an eye. So I've got to figure out a way to find kind of a bulk downloader and just hook up a massive hard drive and download all these shows onto this hard drive so that they have a place to live. Anyway, that's just a housekeeping thing. So by the first of the year, we will be entirely on Rumble because I'm tired of I'm tired of the censorship over here on YouTube. It's unbearable. Now I know that people have an issue with all the ads on Rumble, and I understand that. YouTube has it's the same thing. Like there's a ton of ads on YouTube. You can pay to have an ad-free service on Rumble, and it might be worth it. I don't know if how Rumble is with ad blockers as add-ons. I've heard that Brave and or Firefox can help you disable ads coming through Rumble. I've heard it. I can't prove that, but perhaps some of you that are more familiar with the capability of both those browsers might have some understanding and insight into it. So anyway, that's the big picture. That's the big plan, is the move to Rumble. It will be complete by the first of the year. Okay. So when we do this from now on, after the first of the year, it'll be over on Rumble. It'll be a big move, but I can't deal with all the fucking bullshit. You know, I got another show taken. You know, YouTube will go back 3-4 years and take shows down. It's ridiculous. And I don't know how or why those shows will come up, whether they're sending algorithmic bots through everybody's feed and picking up on words that show up as sensitive content, whether somebody's gone through the sort of the back catalog of shows and seen something they don't like and they report it to YouTube. In any case, I'm over it. I'm totally over it. So there you go. All right. Let's go through, just do a little quick meet and greet here. We'll jump into the weather. It's always great to throw out a Seeger comment. The Democrat fallout vortex is stunning. I'm talking Substacks about knitted protest pillows, dodgy poetry, pain management tutorials, Fuentes voodoo dolls, the lot. Liberals do crazy really well. So this is a very unhinged part of our society. And one of the things that, and this gets into the astrology of where we are. Let me see if I can pull this up here. And I'm sure some of you have already seen this. But this is, let's see, hold on. Here we go. So this is from Hal Turner radio show.com. And if you were watching the live stream with David and I on Tuesday night, one of the things that I talked about was poisoning. And, you know, it was one of those things where, how do I explain this? It's a process that I have in my brain that is not to say that it's anything remarkable. It's kind of a process that's not easy to replicate. And there was a time when people were saying, well, you should teach astrology. You should teach astrology. You should teach astrology. This was, you know, years ago. And I thought to myself, I can't teach this thing that I know, because, and again, I'm not trying to sound elitist or anything, but not everyone can do it. And it's hard for me to transfer that kind of knowledge in a way. And so I put that aside and I started to teach a lot of astrology. And a lot of people were, got very, very good at it and have their own mechanisms with astrology, right? So it's not just, my way or the highway. It's just something that I've been able to do in my life. So let me bring this up here. I'll show you guys. And David and I were talking, and I was looking at Mars in Trump's chart retrograde through Cancer. I was looking at the retrograde of Neptune and Pisces, and I'm adding all these things up in my head. And what am I getting? I'm getting poisoning, right? And I said, you need to be really careful about where you eat and drink. I said, you need to be very aware of where you go, because it felt to me like in that moment, the data was poisoning. You got to watch out. And then this video surfaces the day after, right? The day after all this happens, and it's about an Italian poison, and it's called what is it? Aqua Tofana. It was a poison created by Julia Tofana in the 1600s to murder abusive husbands. So here we go. This is this video that's making its rounds on TikTok, and I guess I should probably listen to it again. This is exactly what these people are saying. This is what they're advocating here, is poisoning people that voted for Donald Trump. So let's watch this just for a second.
Never gonna happen, sweetie. Your body, our choice. I got that all day, every day, therapist, mother made it, then a virgin, nurse, then a servant, just an appendage, lip to attendant, so that he never lifts a finger, 24/7 baby machine, so he can live out his picket fence dreams. It's not an act of love if you make her, you make me do too much labor. Aqua Tofana. Am I right? Aqua Tofana. If you know, you know. Barely can wait to hit him with the snare and the bass, square in the face. This fucking world better prepare to get laced, because they're gonna taste my. Barely can wait to hit him with the snare and the bass, square in the face. This fucking world better prepare to get laced, because they're gonna taste my. I got that adrenaline, not knowing what I'm.
Speaking to me is a privilege. You do not have privileges.
She's a Jets fan. You got to be fucking kidding me. No, that makes sense.
Barely can wait to hit him with the snare and the bass, square in the face. This fucking world better prepare to get laced, because they're gonna taste my. I got that adrenaline, not knowing what I'm.
Never.
So this is what I was talking about with the whole poisoning thing. It's kind of it's in the stars, as they say. What an unfortunate lot. I have more to say about that, and I'll save it for the end of the show. Hit like, hit subscribe, share the show if you like it. It's an hour's worth of astrology and commentary and a little bit of history all rolled up into one, and hopefully you get a few laughs along the way, which is what we aim to do. We like to keep it light. We like to talk about poison in the morning. That's keeping it light, don't you think? Just a little light topic. A little light topic of conversation. A little light topic of conversation. I'm starting to lean into Trump a little bit there. Okay, let's get into it. We're zooming in. Yes, we got it right. You know, when we talk about Scorpio, especially now that we're in the third decan of Scorpio, which puts it in the Cancerian decan. Boy, doesn't that just scream poison? The Cancerian decan, hospitality, homes. Look, if you are, I hate to sound paranoid, but if you're going to a Starbucks in an urban area and you fit a profile, I would have serious doubts about going through. I'm just saying, because these people are so fucking crazy. They will figure it out. They'll make their own little aqua tofana that'll happen, and you'll start to see people that will expire. It's going to happen because these people are so demented. They're part of a death cult. I'll talk about that again a little bit later, but that's where that sun is. It's in the Cancerian decan, which puts it into things like this decan of Scorpio is the most witchy decan of Scorpio. This decan of Scorpio is very, very witchy because it's in Cancer. It's all about home remedies and elixirs, and it's even more witchy than Pisces. The Scorpio decan in Pisces, which is basically 10 to 20, is much more mediumistic in some ways. It's much more it's much more connected to things like necromancy and channeling and voices from beyond the grave. This is much more rooted in like the home and craft. So this is where we are with these final 10 degrees of Scorpio. And we have Jupiter here, and we have Chiron coming in and forming a yod. And Chiron in Aries is male energy. We talked about this on the Sunday night show, and it's also wounded women. The last time Chiron was in Aries was during the height of second wave feminism. And so now we're seeing this the poison fruit, right? The poison apple, which has ultimately, been the transgenic mutation of the sexes. And here it's coming in, and it's forming a yod. And this is the program that's being run behind the sun, right? At 20 Scorpio, or the Cancerian decan, which again brings all that sort of scorpionic death cult energy into the home and into places that are related to hospitality, restaurants, bars, taverns, hotels, cafes. Those are all Cancerian places. And then we have Jupiter back here, which is weird, right? Because they're spreading information. They're spreading information around how to do, and the retrograde is going back in time and looking at, how this is done and how this is made. And it's a byproduct of an absolutely sick society, which again, I'll get into a bit more later on. This is kind of, this is a really important station because again, it's just entering into. Now, the other thing too, as it moves into the Cancerian decan, Trump is starting to make all these appointments, or he's floating ideas and then getting feedback. And we'll get into more of that on 15 minutes. But when it gets into, when Scorpio gets into the Cancerian decan, things get very emotional. Like things are emotional in the Piscean decan, but Pisces is mutable, and so the emotions come and they go, and but in Cancer it's much more intense and it's much more personal. When we talk about Cancer, we're talking about tradition, and we're talking about values, emotional values in our family. So the United States is a Cancerian country. And when the sun in Scorpio gets into that decan, into that Cancerian decan, things get very intense. It feels life or death in a lot of ways. So there's a very powerful, palpable sense of like immediacy, and it'll evoke very strong reactions as well, both pro and con. This is the thing about Scorpio. There's no middle ground with Scorpio. So it's not like, well, it's not a bad choice. It's usually, wow, that's a really great choice, or that's a really terrible choice. So again, we'll get into more of those mechanics over on 15. We do have today the moon in Aries. So let's talk about the moon a little bit. It's coming off of a conjunction last night in Pisces. Did people have some very interesting dreams last night? I've started using these like things on my nose to open my nasal passages at night because I have sleep apnea, and I've been able to sleep better, and I've been having more REM sleep and more dreams. So I'm starting to remember my dreams more, which I haven't for a long time. And I used to be like a heavy duty dreamer, and not always fun. My 12th house is Scorpio, so I don't always like dreams. So they can be hellish. I've gone to the hell realms in my dreams many times. So it's not really that fun. It's like, oh, I'm not remembering dreams. That's not such a great loss. But there are dreams sometimes that are really deep and profound. And like, those for me, at least they weren't so rare when I was younger. They become a bit more rare as I've gotten older. But last night with that Moon Neptune conjunction, and that might have been a very interesting night to do some dreaming. So I'm just curious as to what your dreams were like last night. Now we have the moon shifting and coming out of the dream and into action. And with the moon in Aries, there's this sense of immediacy, like it has to happen now. It has to happen now. It has to happen now. Venus is gone out of Sagittarius, which is a shame, right? Like now it's in Capricorn and it's very formal. So again, look at what Trump is doing. He's making these appointments now with Venus and Capricorn. It would have been better if it was Venus and Sag, but hey, look, this is the way it is. And Venus, and so who's a Capricorn once again? Oh yeah, Jared Kushner. That's who's a Capricorn. Oh, Venus moves into Capricorn, and we see the hidden hand of Jared Kushner once again help determine our destiny. There has not been more power vested in one person who is unofficially elected than perhaps Jared Kushner in recent memory. But that's a conversation for 15 minutes. So we have Venus coming in, and it's squaring the moon. Not a lot of patience today. Not a lot of patience. Venus and Capricorn. It's very officious. Venus and Capricorn does. It's interesting. It stands on ceremony, and yet it doesn't. Right. So what do I mean by that? Capricorn is all about protocols. Well, did you go through this channel? Did you put this in writing? Did you send this attached as a memo? And did the rest of the team get it? Right. Like there's lots of protocols with Venus and Capricorn. And yet at the same time, Venus and Capricorn also does not have a lot of patience for people that don't follow the protocols. And this is a very argumentative vibe today. It's very, very argumentative. So you're going to have people, and the moon in Aries generally is a young moon, right? Like Aries is a young sign. So there's an impetuosity with the moon in Aries. I mean, we saw that with Kamala Harris. That's where her moon was, in Aries. And she was always at her best when she was running around like a 15-year-old and shaking her booty, right? So there's an impetuosity with the moon in Aries. The word for that is now. It's like instant gratification. And Venus in Capricorn wants to delay all that. Hey, just hold on. Just delay it a little bit. You'll get your raise. Don't worry. Don't worry. Just hold on. We'll settle this after first quarter, Q1 or whatever, right? Like that's Capricorn language. And there's just not a lot of patience right now. And it's interesting to kind of look at this through the Trump lens. And it's such a fascinating dynamic because there are people who are still traumatized by 2020 and the people that Trump picked, right? And there are people who from 2020 to 2024 have gotten very hip to the game. And how much patience will there be for certain appointees to be determined? Again, we'll get into more of that on 15. What about your own personal life? There's not a lot of patience today. There's just not, if you are in a position where you're dealing with people who are literally demanding your emotional attention with that moon in Aries coming off that conjunction with Neptune, and there's this Venus and Capricorn in the air. It's just like, shut the fuck up and just do your job. Just shut the fuck up and do your job. I don't need to hear this. I don't need to, have to deal with the insistence of all of your feelings. And that'll be reflected out into the world as well. You would think that almost a week after, it's been a week now, the election was a week. It's so 7 days old. You would think that the smoldering embers of that election would be doused and put out. No, it's just today's one of those days where, my God, is the bleeding ever going to stop? Today, the bleeding is at high volume bleed today. So, if you're in a work situation, it's challenging to say the least. Bill Belichick, famous Aries, just do your job. That was the Patriots motto. Just do your job. So here we go. We got Mars over here, which is the ruler of Aries, coming in conjuncting Venus. And it's like, yeah. Are you going to blow your lid? Because Mars in Leo does not suffer fools gladly. Venus in Capricorn tries to toe the company line. I'm not going to get emotional about this. I'm going to be dispassionate. It's a hard position to hold today. And it's one of those kind of Mount Vesuvius moments where if you did explode and lose your shit, I don't think anybody would blame you. Today's one of those days where astrologically it's very hard to maintain an even-keeled approach to so-called reality. Now, if we take the Mars, Neptune, and Mars Moon trine into consideration here, it's a great time to act, right? It's a great time to act. And when we get into the Venus Moon square, which again, we're at it, today, the early morning hours, even into this evening, it challenges. The moon is connected to sentimentality. I don't care what sign it's in. It's connected to sentimentality. And so this moon Venus square challenges our sentimentality. Venus in Capricorn is not sentimental at all. It's not, right? So if you're hung up on sentimentality, somebody's trying to get a hold of me. If you're hung up on sentimentality, get rid of it. Because today's one of those days to act. That's where the strength is. The Venus Moon square gets you hung up. But you're thinking about people's feelings. The question is, are people thinking about your feelings? In most cases, probably not. I would say most humans tend to be very selfish, very self-oriented. The ones that aren't have had good modeling or have worked on themselves to understand that, they're not the only ones in the sandbox. So today's one of those days where, hey, look, if you've got to do something and act and make a move, do it. Just do it. channeling some Nike here. Just freaking do it. Don't get hung up on protocol and trying to assuage other people's feelings, especially when they're being aggressive. This is a very, very aggressive operation today between the moon and Venus. Now we got Mercury and Sag, which is very blunt. It is in trine today with the moon and also in trine with Chiron. So if you have to be forceful or you have to activate your will, you can do so with a sense of, I don't know, hold some degree of holding space. Like I respect your ability to be an insufferable asshole in life, right? I can hold space for that because I too can be an insufferable asshole. However, in this case, I will be more of an insufferable asshole than you are. And so you got to go. And you're welcome to be that and do that and act that out anywhere you want, but not here. Not here. And that's really the moon trine Chiron. It's like understanding that people are wounded, they're hurt. Like, I get it. We get it. We get it. And here's Mars. Boom. Comes in and says, hey, don't suffer fools gladly. If you have to act, act. And act with swiftness. And we have this in conjunct with Venus and Mars. And Venus, I don't care if it's in Capricorn, it still wants to balance. It still wants to be fair. It still wants to make sure that, that everybody gets a seat at the table. That's just the nature of Venus. Mars doesn't really care about that. Does not care about that. So we're of all the planets today, I would say Venus is the planet that's the most challenged. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be diplomatic. Now, what's the downside of just keeping your mouth shut and not doing anything? You're going to build up a lot of resentment and a lot of anger, and I wouldn't advise it. And sometimes there are difficult decisions that we have to make in life, and today feels like one of those days. It feels like, hey, I'm going to have to go there. And you can go there in a way that is mindful, but this Venus, everything with Venus today just screams, and even the square with Neptune, by degree, Venus, it's like, yeah, we've been here before. I mean, that's a relative statement, right? Or more of a, we've been here before. We've gone down this road before. We've had this sense of betrayal. Venus Neptune squares are fraught with betrayal. It's like, I gave you my trust. I gave you my trust. I gave you my heart. I gave you, the password to my fucking ATM machine, right? And the Venus Neptune square betrays all that. It's like, how could you do this? How could you do this? So there's a lot of failure. There's a lot of failure set up for failure today. And I would advise not standing on ceremony, because if you do, you'll get caught in this. This is the trap of victimization today, even with Venus and Capricorn, which is so stoic, right? So stoic. And the challenge, again, anytime with Venus, is to arrive at some form of balance. Because on the other hand, again, what does Venus and Capricorn do? It's just like cut it loose. So today's one of those days where, what's the phrase, like, wrestling with the angel, or whatever that is from the Bible. You're wrestling with, like, your better nature and your lesser nature. Like, there's this real kind of tug of war going on between the things that that you have to do versus the things that you think you need to do. All right. let's talk about. I got to save a little bit of runway for today's star of the day because there's a lot to unpack. Lot to unpack. Let me get into the banner. Okay, so let's go into the star of the day, and we'll give the wind up. So recently, I got a text from my son, who's in college, and he went through this horrible breakup. His first love. He's a Pisces, Cancer rising. Do the math on that, and has been really struggling for almost the better part of a year now, almost going on a year, with this dynamic in his life. And he said, hey, I really don't want to have to drink any alcohol to self-medicate. Is there anything that you can suggest for me? And I said, sure. And I got on the phone with Chris and texted him, and I told him what was going on with my son. And I said, hey, this is what's happening with him. Can you put together a package with some instructions on how to go about using it? And I told him exactly what he was going through. And he said, sure, no problem. And he put something together, and it arrived the other day. And I got feedback from my son, and he says, thank you so much. The gummy has made a tremendous difference. And I don't feel as stressed out. I don't feel as anxious. And so there's other parts of that protocol, not just the gummy. And I'm just telling you this because of the efficacy of Chris's products, right? So this is an alternative to him self-medicating. And you said, well, it's medicating, but it's different. It's a very different kind of protocol. So anyway, if you go to truehempscience.com and you purchase $100 or more, and you type in 15MINS, you will get a goodie bag with your order. You'll get something like this, a pouch with some of the gummies. You'll probably get a couple of eyedroppers with some of the elixirs. It's a really, really nice deal. It's like a small order within your order, and you get to, when I was a kid, I'd like to get these compilation albums, and I could hear songs from different bands and go, oh, I like this, right? So the goodie order or the goodie bag is like a compilation record. If you spend $150 or more, you get free shipping, and there's always a 30-day money-back guarantee. So that's truehempscience.com, your one-stop shop for all things CBD. All right, let's talk about Charlie Manson. I found it interesting that Charles Manson and Tanya Harding were born. They share the same birthday. And what does it say about me that I know the names of the attackers of Tanya Harding's attackers on Nancy Kerrigan? What does it say about me? The guys with what do they have? Like a hammer or wrench or whatever? Jeff Gillooly and Sean Stant. Those were Tanya's hitmen. And I thought to myself, it's interesting that both Charles Manson and Tanya Harding were able to get people to do things for them, which might be a hallmark of this day. Right. Manson you can see Manson in his chart. I mean, you can totally see the dude in his chart. He has an intense amount of Scorpio. Like, does that fucking surprise you? Sun in Scorpio, Venus Scorpio, Jupiter in Scorpio, Mercury in Scorpio. Charlie Manson, astrologically, is no lightweight. He is no lightweight. And it's all seventh house, right? So what he does is he bonds intensely with people on a one-to-one level. And sometimes it's not even like language based. I'll give you an example. So Susan Atkins it was Squeaky Fromm. And Squeaky Fromm, Lynette Squeaky Fromm, was kicked out of her house. And she was sitting on the curb. She's sitting on the curb. She's distraught, despondent. She looks up and there's Charles Manson. And he like kind of immediately knows like what's going on with her. Did your parents kick you out? That's the first thing he says to her. And all of a sudden it unlocks the keys to her subconscious. So this is how Manson would bond. He would bond intensely one-on-one with people. But like if there was somebody who, like one of the traits of narcissism is this whole idea of love bombing. Charles Manson was a love bomber. I'm telling you right now, he was a love bomber. And, very intense love bomber. Don't underestimate the Sun-Venus conjunction. And the sun is out front, right? So the sun is this kind of intense, burning furnace. And behind all of it is Venus, Jupiter, and Mercury. Like Charlie Manson was a force. So he's bonding with people intensely one-on-one. But up here in the 10th house, here we go. We got some helter-skelter going on right here. Right? Moon in Aquarius, true node in Aquarius. The moon in Aquarius is lunacy in the 10th house. And the moon in the 10th house tends to be lunacy in general. And it can be very scandalous. And I'll give you an example of the moon in the 10th house. Somebody I know quite well has the moon in the 10th house conjunct the midheaven in the sign of Gemini. And what has been their life goal or their life work? Their life work has been to figure out psychologically how to get people to click on something and have a pass through, whether it's an email or a website, right? So the moon in the 10th house is all about figuring out how to psychologically interact with the public, because the moon represents the non-rational parts of our being. Why do we do certain things? What motivates us to buy one brand of something over another, right? And there are people who make millions of dollars each year to figure this out. And this is the moon in the 10th house. It's understanding the subconscious needs of the so-called public. Now, also for that individual, their emotional body and their emotional content is on display for the world. So it can often be quite scandalous if you have the moon in the 10th house. If you're going through a transit that is detrimental, let's say a Neptune transit to the moon, well, look out. That's a pretty heavy transit, or a Pluto transit to the moon. And those can be either direct or oppositional, conjunct, oppositional, or even on the squares, right? So anytime you get that, it's going to activate your public display of your emotional body. So with Manson, of course, he has what? He has a family. He has the Manson family. And so the moon is connected to the family. And they're not blood family. It's a ragtag group of social rejects that he bonds intensely with. Even Saturn in the 11th house, he's the father. He is the father to all the dirty and ragged little kids hanging out at Spawn Ranch, right? He is the Saturnian figure. And clearly, he's also incredibly rebellious, right? He's rebellious. He has Uranus in Aries over here. And what's it doing? It's opposing Mercury. It's opposing Jupiter. And you can also see here, like, if you want to make a case for Manson and mind control, right? The 12th house being prisons, jails, foster, he was in some kind of like Boys Town situation. And it's Aries, right? Aries is playing this role over here. And, it's kind of buried and hidden, right? It's intercepted in his 12th house. And Aries is the head. It's the brain. And he's got Uranus in its retrograde. So somebody was cooking Charlie's noggin in these 12th house situations. And what's also interesting here, if you look at like Sun, Venus, and then he's got these really super tight conjunctions in his chart. You know, Mars, Neptune, like completely conjunct in Virgo. And I think one of the things that you would get with Manson is this idea that he was there completely for you, especially with this sextile with Sun, Venus. Like, again, this gets into that 7th house and the love bombing. Like Charlie Manson, if you spent time with him, even if it was for a matter of minutes, you know how some people will be distracted or they'll think about what to say in a conversation, or they may not give you the time of day at all. Manson, based on his chart, has this ability to be completely there, completely and utterly there, and to bond at a very deep level with an individual, as if you're the only, like there could be a room full of people, you know, like let's say 100 people. But if you were having a conversation with Charles Manson, nobody else would exist in that room, right? He would have this ability to just completely be, I know this sounds really weird, right? But he would have this ability to be completely present with everybody that he would come in contact with, which is fairly unusual, right? Especially for somebody who was, you know, considered to be psychopathic, right? Now, again, this is apart from Miles Mathis or anything. Well, that never happened. We're looking at this guy's chart, right? So there's a birth record of his chart. So he had that ability to just completely and utterly bond. Look how close that Mars-Neptune conjunction is. It's also creative. And there's a story with Tex is what Tex, I just got his book. Blanking out Tex. We'll just call him Tex. There's a story where Tex gets picked up by Brian Wilson. He's hitchhiking. Tex Watson. He's picked up by Brian Wilson. And even Tex Watson's an interesting case study. He's from Texas, obviously. And he is part of this hardcore kind of Southern Baptist world where he doesn't fit in, winds up going to LA, and he's hitchhiking, and he gets picked up by Brian Wilson, and Brian Wilson takes him to his house where there's a party, and Charles Manson is performing at this party, and everybody is completely enraptured by Charles Manson playing his songs on the guitar. Like he's a Pied Piper. And again, right, it's this Mars-Neptune conjunction. Also, he's got this Sun-Venus-Pluto trine. It's pretty tight, right? So he's pulling on all these deep kind of psychic and subconscious energies in his chart, and very entrancing in a lot of ways. Like, I can understand why Charles Manson became a thing. I mean, you can see it in his chart. Chiron in Gemini, he's able to work with people that are crazy, right? He's able to work with them. And then everything is put together in this grand cross. And look out, right? Look the fuck out. Part of it is fixed and part of it is cardinal. So this is a really interesting kind of case study for a fixed and cardinal. You know, it's like if you're gonna have an explosive series of elements here, right? You have an explosive series of elements in a grand cross. It would be the fixed and the cardinal, not the mutable. The mutable would kind of act as a solvent in some ways with the grand cross. It would take some of the edge off of it. But when you have fixed and mutable, it's like fire and water, or fire and air. Because in a lot of ways, it's kind of like that. Although in this case, it's water, fire, and air, right? It's a formidable chart. And I've only met a few other people that have this much Scorpio in their chart. And you can just see how he operates. And you can see, and again, chaos, right? Moon square Uranus, helter skelter. And Moon in Aquarius in the 10th house. If you really want a case study in a chart and an individual whose life, relationships, modus operandi, we all have a fair amount of knowledge, this is your chart to study. It's all there. It's completely transparent with the Manson chart. The son of man. Isn't that interesting? What's also interesting, based on all of this, is the fact that these women now are shaving their heads. They're shaving their heads. Who else shaved their heads? Charlie's Angels. That's who shaved their heads. This is kind of fucking mind-blowing, actually. Yeah, where was now Manson is a big deal, right? Circa 1969. I was living in Southern California. I was 9 years old when the Tate LaBianca murders happened. And again, you can say, well, it didn't happen or whatever. That's fine. What do they do with the people? What do they do with J.C. Brain? What do they do with Abigail Folger? What do they do with Sharon Tate? They all just get repurposed and they start playing roles somewhere else. I mean, that could possibly be true. But Chiron, right? Chiron is in Aries, right around the same time that the Manson family stuff is happening in 1969. So we're coming up on that Chiron position. And now you got all these girls shaving their heads, right? And they're all talking about helter skelter. I mean, that's what they're talking about. They may not be talking about it directly, but that's what they're talking about. So what we're seeing now, all they need is some kind of charismatic figure. I guarantee you won't be Charlie Manson. Do you know who looks a lot like Charlie Manson? Jared Leto. Jared Leto is a Charlie Manson looking motherfucker. I'm wondering if Jared Leto's Charlie Manson's illegitimate kid. They look so much alike. In fact, I even put it on Twitter. I'll show you. Here, let's do this. And then we'll get out of here. Check it out. Check it out. You tell me. You tell me. And Jared Leto has a cult, doesn't he? Jared Leto, there are plenty of disaffected women who are shaving their heads and wearing blue bracelets, just waiting for you. Just waiting for you. Doesn't he own some kind of an island or something? Maybe you can take him there. All right. That's it for today. Thanks for being here. We'll be over on 15 Minutes of Flame, which is on Boxcast and Rumble. So if you want to get caught up on some of the post-election madness, gossip, chitter-chatter, buzz, opinionated takes, come on over. The water is wet and it's warm. All right. Have a blessed day. Take good care of each other. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to discern what's possible. Bye for now.